Serbia, a country of world-known inventors, incredible liquor, and a culture that dates back to the Byzantine Empire. But is it any good to start your business there today? Let's talk about it now! Hi, I'm Oliver and welcome back to the channel AskMeStartup, where we talk about startups, small businesses, and the world that surrounds them. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and pushing the notification bell so YouTube lets you know whenever I'm uploading new content. If you're into business, if you have a small business, if you plan to start a business, please feel free to download my free startup checklist, link in the description below. Today's topic, Serbia. Is this East European country any good to start your business there? So as always in this series, we take a look on the facts about the country first and then have a deeper look on its possibilities and capabilities. Serbia being a Southeast European country, it is not part of the European Union and has roughly a population of 6.9 million inhabitants. The capital is Belgrade, which is also the largest city in the country. Now they all do a GDP PPP per capita of roughly $18,000 US. That is, to be quite frank, a pretty low amount compared to the rest of Europe, but it is on par with many of the Southeast European countries. Now, in order to evaluate whether or not it is worthwhile to start a business in Serbia, we would like to understand how entrepreneurial are the Serbians. Because in one way or the other, that determines the rest of the frame set and the way the country actually is progressing and attracting businesses. And if you look at the numbers, we have to say that they are okay-ish entrepreneurial levels. I mean, they're not better or worse off than their neighbors, but they're not as entrepreneurial as maybe some of the more northern countries like Estonia. Nonetheless, this country still offers a significant amount of very well-educated people, and the startup scene has been growing, and last year was firstly recognized as having a startup complete ecosystem value of roughly $300 million US. Now that gives you an indication that yes, the level until today might be lower, but it is growing. And Serbia is doing a lot to attract new businesses. So the next thing we like to take a look at is the legal and governmental framework, because that determines, the surroundings that we're working in and how easy is it to deal with that surroundings. And if we look at that, we have to say that they have a legal system, but it is not yet completely on par with the Western European standards. Furthermore, Transparency International ranks Serbia on rank 94 out of 180 countries they're measuring. That already tells you that transparency and other, let's say, not optimal practices are quite common in this country. That is good or bad, but on the other hand, you have to be aware that if you plan to start there, you might not always understand why certain rules apply to you and not to your competitors, for instance. In terms of bureaucracy, they are still a bureaucratic country, but they're improving because they want to attract new businesses. Hence, they make certain steps easier, which is specifically known for the way they treat residency. We'll talk about that later in the video, and taxes. Now, taxes are a way to attract a lot of businesses always. That's no matter which country we are. But Serbia has gone a specific way. Now, the first thing that they do is they kind of pay incentives to Serbians that are living abroad to come back to the country and establish a business there. That business would then not have to pay income taxes, or up to 70% less for the first 5 years. However, and that is irrespective of your nationality, if you plan to start a business in Serbia and if you spend R&D money in Serbia, you are able to deduct the taxes to a quite significant amount. And if you sell innovative products, the question of course remains, what are innovative products? You are actually eligible for a 0% tax, 0% income tax to your company. Now, that of course is something I haven't seen in any of the countries so far, but it shows you the determination of the country to attract new businesses because they are well aware that they need jobs to stop the brain drain, because this very well educated population is actually trying to migrate all over the European Union to get better paying jobs and have less corruption. Now, if we want to start a business in Serbia, we would also like to understand what are popular Serbian brands. So that kind of gives us an indication how good the overall surroundings support world-known brands. And when I was looking at the companies, I have to tell you that I wasn't able to find important brands or known brands to me. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't exist in a different setting, and maybe for people on the more Eastern European side, for sure, many of the brands have some recognition, but these are not what I would call world-known brands where you could go to America, to India, wherever, and people would know the company. But instead of having companies that are world-known, they have world-known people, brands that actually are, for instance, in invention. Nikola Tesla, one of the most important inventors in the last centuries, was Serbian. He invented this Tesla coil, and of course now is famously marked on the American car brand Tesla. Then we have Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest tennis players ever, which has had, let's say, some unconventional discussions or presence in the media as of recent, but he has made an exception, or he is up to the exception of being a very well-known brand all over the world as a single person. And that seems to continue with other sports people in or of Serbia as well. A very interesting way of looking at the country in that regard, that they are able to produce world-class sport athletes, world-class inventors, but maybe not world-class companies as of today. So what is the startup ecosystem like? So the good thing is there is a pretty good organized ecosystem in Serbia, and you get a lot of free educational training and connections to investors and connections to VCs. All of this is granted within Serbia in a more or less organized manner, which is a good sign because they want to attract businesses. But what type of businesses or startups do we see? Now, we have to be aware that the current way the economy is set up is more on I would call it agriculture first. This means that there are, of course, a lot of agricultural startups because they have a good chance to try their stuff right on their doorstep. But at the end, also Serbia is one of the biggest blockchain hubs in Europe because electricity is cheap. There will be a lot of blockchain mining going on. And so anything money related in terms of crypto is actually located in Serbia. Then you should be aware that there's another sector that is quite big, and that is gaming. Now, gaming startups are there, and they do have a pretty significant amount of revenue. This is pretty similar to Finland, which I have to tell you, Finland is a lot bigger in terms of gaming industry, but Serbia is catching up. So if you plan to start a business for gaming industry, Serbia might be worthwhile looking at because they also have a startup visa. The Serbian startup visa isn't called a startup visa, it's called just a visa for Serbia. And it's pretty simple. If you establish a business in Serbia, which is pretty cheap to do, you're then eligible for a Serbian residency. And that is also true for your spouse and kids. In general, it is very easy to go to Serbia, and it is actually the way of establishing a business is faster than the other way to get a residency in Serbia, which would be a residency by investment. If you want to learn more about the residency requirements or the visa requirements, I'll link a link down below from the Serbian government. Just be aware that while I was doing the research, a lot of the links I found were provided by agencies. That tells you that they're hiding information or the public isn't as well organized, and that they're making a big business because many people think that it is a very, very attractive place to go. Now, also there is a YouTube channel called Nomad Capitalist, which also endorses Serbia quite heavily because wages are cheap and it is easy to get a residency there. Hence, you would have quite a decent setup if you plan to start an international business. With the downside, of course, that you have not the direct access to the European Union. Now, Serbia is a candidate to become a European Union member state, but they're still far off. And I don't see this progressing anytime soon due to many political small fights that there are all over the place. But as Switzerland, for instance, tells you, it is not necessarily essential to be part of the European Union. It is essential to have good relations and to have the economic freedom to do the business you want to do. So is Serbia a good place to start your business? Well, I would say it is a very, very interesting alternative to all the European member states. Why? Because they're really trying to attract new and innovative businesses. And if you are able to have a 0% income tax on your business for a couple of years, that can be the part that is the essential part of the deal to make it worthwhile starting your business. All right, everybody. I hope this video was helpful to you. This is the first country I've dealt with that is a non-EU member besides Switzerland. If you want to start a business in Serbia, just drop a comment down below and let's have a discussion. Or if you started a business and have had some experience with the local authorities, with the way to start your business there, just tell everybody what you felt and what you've seen. I'm really looking forward to start a discussion here. If you made it so far into the video, please subscribe and push the notification bell because it really, really helps this channel to grow. Thank you for paying attention, and I'm gonna see you next time.